Welcome to the Welsh Woodman Workshop, and in tonight's video we're going to be wood turning this large end grain style bowl from this beautiful piece of Metasequoia glyptostribodes, or dawn redwood for short. Before we get into the turn, this wood is incredible. Now the story behind it is only until fairly recently this tree was believed to be extinct. So there's fossil records found of this tree all over the world from millions of years ago. And it was only until 1940s that a whole forest of these were discovered in Sichuan in China, central China. And we found out the trees were no longer extinct. So these trees have been grown all around the world now as ornamental trees. Now sadly, a garden in the UK where this beautiful tree was growing, the tree died, and what I'm going to try and do is give it a new lease of life by turning it into an end grain style bowl. So the lathe we're going to be turning this on is a VB36. I'm going to make sure it's not touching any parts of the tool rest before I start this off. I've put my lathe to slow start. I'm out of the line of fire just in case anything bad did happen, it came loose. We're going to turn this on at its lowest speed, and I can gradually, very, very slowly, bring this up to a good turning speed. Face shield for some eye protection, so if anything did come off, it's going to sort of hit the face shield and not my face. And we're going to be using for most of this a 3/8 inch bowl gouge. So it's a pretty beefy bowl gouge, and we're going to need that for the overhang that we've got over the tool as we're going in. So we're going to start in the centre.
To work my way out, I'm just going to face off the top. So I'm cutting an ear log. Just get a nice flat bottom, like get some reference points on. So I'm trying to cut as much as I can into the side grain of the wood. Just makes things a little bit easier. And I'm going to get a nice flat profile across the top. I'm going to take away a little bit of the bulk, so these are just rough cuts.
Okay, so this is the interesting part, because we've got the buttresses that are out. We're going to need to take those away. So we're hitting ear log a lot of the time. And we're going to want to work these down so that they're gradually sort of blending into this top sort of side edge. So that's the plan anyway. So we're just going to keep working away on these. Tool needs a sharp. So I'll show you my sharpening process really quickly. So I've got a whole video on how I sharpen my tools and how I made this sharpening jig on my YouTube channel as well. But just to give you an overview, I've got a little marker, so a little Sharpie mark on the back. I've set my fence, or table even, to the right angle, which is 40 degrees in this case. I turn my CBN wheel away, and I'm checking to see if that marker pen has been removed. So I got it to the right angle. So I'm going to come in, do the tip of the tool, then I'm going to sweep over to do the wings. So hopefully I've got enough room with the camera. Alright, let's turn them on. So I'm going to do the nose, roll the nose, 40 degrees across to my wing, 40 degrees across to my wing. I've got it rolled on the edge then, nice sharp edge.
So I'm going to try and do some step cuts, so working like inch increments across. And this is just literally to rough out the bowl, so I'm not really interested at this point in the finish of the cut. It's just to get the bulk of the material out of the way. And that's another advantage of using this 3/4 inch bowl gouge, is the overhang. Then it's less vibration with the tool, especially working on these buttresses parts when I'm hitting ear log a lot of the time. So it's quite good at removing the bulk of the material. So it'd be interesting, as soon as I finish the bowl, for your comments below what you think of the bowl. Always really appreciate those comments. And it'd be interesting as well to hear where you're actually watching from in the world as well. So if you let me know in the comments below, that'd be awesome.
That is pretty cool. I love it.
So I'm going to continue to work the buttresses down to make it more of a nice pleasing shape. As soon as I establish a foot on the bottom, which is going to be my next step, I can really establish the shape as such. So it's just a roughing cuts again. We can see, looking at the top of the log, that's where I'm looking for my profile at this point in time.
Actually getting there, so you can see the thickness that I'm going to get. I'm probably going to keep a little rim, about a centimetre I think. See, I've knocked the edges down now, quite happy with that. So the next thing I'm going to start working on is the foot. Now I'm going to be using a chuck to reverse this in order to turn the other side. Now I've gone with some really detailed, pronounced sort of dovetail jaws. So this is going to help hook this on. If you notice, I've opened the jaws slightly, and that makes a perfect concentric circle around the outside then. So what I've got is my dividers. I've set these to that size. Now when this jaw is expanded as close to a circle as possible, you're going to get a really tight grip on the workpiece. So I'm going to find the size now of this using the dividers. So I've put the tool rest up so I can trail this slightly. I only want to touch with one point. If I touch with two, it'll drag it round. So where I've done that little scratch, that's where I want to put my mark in now. So I'm going to be using a parting tool to establish that line. I prefer to do a little mortise inside that you can expand out into rather than a tenon. I found with tenons that the end grain straws can compress slightly and it can come loose, and with larger things you don't want that to sort of happen. So I found that the expanding the jaws into that mortise, I've had more luck with the piece holding on than with tenons. Now with big pieces like this you can't really take a chance. Bad things tend to happen. So we've got a mortise cut to the depth we need. Now this is probably the most crucial thing. If you're going to turn big, it's really important you match the profile of your jaws and you make sure the jaws, see, they're just about fitting in there. I've got that 3mm, they need to be expanded to make it a perfect concentric circle. That's my 3mm gap there. Now this gap can sometimes be different on different jaws, depending how your jaws have been made. So if they've been band swords or if they've been milled, there'll be a different gap. But you need to find out which is your perfect circle, try and get that gap each time. Now that's a lovely strong hold on there, not going anywhere, and it should remount the workpiece lovely on the other side. What we're going to do now is create like a little foot where this will sit on the table, turn away the material from that foot, and we'll start hollowing out the inside. So just marked on where we want the foot to be, so we can blend all this stuff in now. Change it over to a sweatback or Celtic grind, Irish grind, whatever you want to call it.
This is where the finishing cuts can come in now with this tool. So focusing on getting a nice finish with this tool, as well as getting a nice sort of aesthetically pleasing shape at the end, hopefully. So we've got lots and lots of draw cuts I'm doing, so you can see the bevel is riding along the entire bowl, and we're getting these long thin shavings as we're cutting into side grain. Just doing a slight undercut now on the foot of the bowl, and I found that if the wood does move when it takes on or loses moisture, having that undercut makes the bowl a little bit more like a tripod, so that it's always going to be flat and not rocking. So I've made the mistake of not doing that in the past, and I've had some rocky bowls which aren't so great. So I'm just going to continue to refine the cut and the shape. You can see I'm working in sections again. It's always a good idea to do that, I find, with larger pieces rather than trying to take it all off in one go, as I found that you can gradually sort of develop your shape rather than taking too much of a cut off and then regretting it.
So the shape I'm trying to go for is that your classic OG, so curve out, then into the top. You can sort of see how that differs on all the pieces going out. So I quite like that profile. I'm going to start working a little bit more on the finish of this, then we can start working inside. So just sanded, use the spray sanding sealer, sanded again, and we're going to be adding on some Wood Wax 22 over the top of this. So it's a chestnut product. I really like using this on my wood turning stuff. So we're just going to rub that in circles, then we can buff it up then after we've applied it to the entire piece.
So happy with the overall shape, I can take it off now and remount it onto the chuck and remove the faceplate for turning the inside. So I'm going to be working on the wings of the bowl, so all these buttress parts, and I'm going to be going in inch increments again down. So I want to get a nice smooth finish on the wings for moving on to the next step. You can see I'm able to turn up the speed now, and you want a higher speed, especially if you've got winged type objects, is you're going to get a nicer sort of consistent cut. So I'm working downhill to make sure the grains of the cut are supporting the tool.
So this is the time consuming part at the moment, because you're going to have to stop and start the lathe just to check you're not taking too much off. So I've gone for a wall thickness of about 3/4 of an inch. Nice and thick on these wings all the way down. So I'm working down, and I want this thickness to be the entirety of the bowl going all the way through. And that way, if there's any moisture in this or the wood does move, it's less likely to crack then as a result. So this is the slow part, like I was saying. So we're going to work these walls down until we get like a consistent thickness, and we're going to get a good finish on these walls before we move further down. So on these like wing parts here. Notice I've left the centre in, and this is going to give me lots of central support. So if you remove the centre, the walls tend to vibrate somewhat. So I found by keeping that in until the end, that it really helps with the entire process.
Again, until I gradually get towards the centre. So this is the fun bit. This is the bit I like and enjoy the most about wood turning and making bowls, is taking up that central part. You see them gradually lower it slowly and slowly going down towards the centre, trying to keep that wall thickness. I'm being careful not to catch the wing of the tool on the wall as I'm doing those push cuts down. And as soon as I'm happy with the next inch I've progressed, I can move down further again. So the central part in the middle now, I can start taking some of this away. So I'm boring a little bit of a hole with my tool and trying to cut as much of the side grain as I can. So I should be getting like longer, thinner shavings from this compared to their end grain style shaving. So I'm working with the grain as much as I can. This is, like I said, bone dry, so not the nicest stuff to work with. So I'm using my 3/4 of an inch bowl gouge again, because we've got that slight overhang. Just going to blend in the bottom, and as soon as I've got the bottom blended in, then be ready for sanding and applying another finish over the top of it. So you see the air coming through the buttresses, how much fun and how much of a challenge this was to turn. So quite a fun project overall, and lovely getting back to a bit of wood turning.
So here's the finished sort of profile. So I've got like a nice even wall thickness throughout. A little bit flat on the bottom. I wish I'd gone a little bit deeper with the foot, but a look of gape as soon as we sand this up, I reckon. Right, let's give it a sand, apply a finish like we did on the outside, and we'll be good to have a look at it at the end. So here's the finished piece. Pretty happy with this. Love the challenge of cutting in the wings, and because I haven't been turning for a good few months, this has been lovely to get back to. So a nice foot on the bottom to make this sit up from the table. The back and the front got such a lovely sort of shape to it. Lots of character in the tree. So this bowl is going to be going to the lovely couple, Hugh and Barbara, who allowed me to take some of the wood from their garden to make this project. So I hope you really enjoy this one. Thank you ever so much for watching. Remember, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe by hitting the subscribe button down below. It really supports me in growing my channel and getting more videos like this your way. So I hope you have a great night. Diolch yn fawr. Nos da.